Hey there, and welcome to our series on how to start lifting. In this series of videos, we're going to eventually get to how to perform the lifts themselves, how to squat, deadlift, clean, etc. But before you can get to lifting, you have to have the equipment on which you can actually train. So we're going to start today, in today's video, with the general equipment. So not your personal equipment, we'll get to that in a future video, so not your shoes, your belt, stuff like that, but instead the general equipment, barbell, squat rack, weights, stuff like that that you would need to outfit your home gym. Or if you're not outfitting your home gym, but you're searching for a gym at which to train, what kind of stuff should you be looking at? What's going to determine whether or not, this is a good barbell to use or not a good barbell to use, that type of thing. So let's get to it. We're going to start, as we should, with the barbell. Because if you could only have one quality piece of equipment in your gym, if you could only spend a significant chunk of change on one item, the barbell is where you want to spend that money. It's important to have a quality bar on which to train. So let's talk about these three bars. They're all quality bars. They're not the only good bars in the world, but this will get you started when you go shopping or looking for a bar. This is the Starting Strength Bar by Texas Power Bars. This is the B&R Bar by Rogue Fitness. And this is the Ohio Power Bar, also by Rogue Fitness. Let's talk about some of their traits here. You'll notice all three of these bars have a center knurl. In other words, they all have a grippy section in the middle of the bar. We'll put a link to the video where we talk about why a center knurl is important, but suffice to say for now, I would recommend that you get a bar that has a center knurl. It's very useful for squatting. Now, if you're going to be performing cleans, like hopefully a lot of you will be with your bar, then you might not want to get a power bar like this one. This is not the only power bar in the world, but all power bars will have a very aggressive center knurl, and that center knurl can kind of carve up your neck a little bit when you're racking your cleans. Now, if you already have a power bar, you don't need to go out and get a different bar on which to do your cleans unless you want to. That's great. Instead, however, you can just put some athletic tape around the middle, and that'll kind of guard your throat a little bit. All right, so that's the center knurl. The thickness of the shaft. These are all 28.5 or 29 millimeter diameter bars. This one's a 28.5. These two have a diameter of 29 millimeters each. You will notice a difference a little bit. This one's going to feel a little bit better in the hands for deadlifts, snatches, cleans, but these are both excellent. 28.5, 29 millimeters, that's great. 28 millimeters is great. That's probably an Olympic barbell in that case. Don't get a 30, a 31, a 32 millimeter diameter bar. If you've got a bar with a shaft that's that thick, it's probably that thick because it's poorly constructed. In other words, it has to be that thick. So you're typically going to look for something that's 28.5 millimeters or 29 millimeters for the diameter of the shaft of your bar. The rings. These are powerlifting rings. These are weightlifting rings. This is a dual ringed design. So is this bar right here. It has both sets of rings. This, being a power bar, only has the power rings or the powerlifting rings. That's fine. You don't have to get a bar that has both sets of rings. It's nice, but it's not that big of a deal. All right, of these three bars right here, in fact, any barbell out there right now, if you had to go out and get one, which one would I recommend that you go get? And I don't make any money for saying this, it would be this one right here. This is my all-around, if I'm gonna have to do all of the lifts, squatting, benching, pressing, deadlifting, snatching, cleaning, jerking, rows, whatever. This is the bar that I'd recommend, the Starting Strength Bar by Texas Power Bars. Next up, you need a power rack, also known as a squat rack or a cage. Now, if you don't want to get a power rack, you can also get a squat stand. We'll talk about those as well, but my first preference would be a power rack like this one here. This is the R3 by Rogue Fitness. This is my favorite power rack. We have a whole bunch of them here. But there's a whole bunch of companies that make very good power racks. You can get them from Rogue, you can get them from Rep Fitness, you can get them from Texas Strength Systems, you can get them from the Strength Co. A couple things that I'm looking for when I'm looking for a power rack is I'm looking for metal that is typically 2 inches wide by 3 inches deep, specifically the 2 inches wide. Now you can get 3 inches wide. It's not my preference, however. If it's 3 inches wide, that means you're either losing space on the inside, which can be a problem, or you're losing space on the outside, which can be a problem. You're more likely to have plates banging into the rack when you go to rack the bar at the end. This is definitely a first world problem. There's still great squat racks in general if they're 3 inches wide, but I'm gonna recommend that you look for one that is 2 inches wide. For spacing of the holes, you want something that has 2-inch spacing. If it has 1-inch spacing down here through what is sometimes known as the bench zone, that's great, but it's not strictly necessary. But you don't want 3 or 4-inch spacing. You're gonna have to make too big of adjustments when you go to adjust your J-hooks. You need some safeties, also known as pins, or we sometimes call them crash bars. And these are the basic features of a power rack. It should probably also have a pull-up bar. It's a handy thing to have. If for whatever reason getting a squat rack or a power rack is not in the cards, instead of a squat rack, you can also get a squat stand like this here. You'll notice that a squat stand only has one set of uprights, unlike the two sets of uprights that a squat rack has. It still has the J hooks or the J cups into which you'll place your bar. And you want to make sure that if you get a squat stand, you get a pair of spotter arms or safety arms. These are going to be here in case you ever miss a rep on your bench press or your squat. So you've got your barbell, you've got your squat rack. Now you need some plates so you can actually load up your bar and start to lift. So starting from the small end of things, you're going to need a pair of 2.5-pound metal plates. You're also going to need a pair of 5-pound plates. You're going to need 2 pairs, that's 4 in total, 2 pairs of 10-pound metal plates, a pair of 25-pounders, and a pair of 45-pound plates. And then as you get stronger, you'll have to go out and get some more 45-pound plates. Now, when you get ready to deadlift, you're going to need full-size plates, in other words, the size of a 45-pound plate. You need 1 on each side of the bar. When you put a 45-pound plate on each side of the bar, that gives you 135 pounds. For a lot of people, probably most people, when they start lifting, 135 pounds is too heavy to start warming up your deadlift. So in that case, you may also need a pair of lighter bumper plates, something like a 15-pound bumper plate, a pair of 15-pound bumper plates or a pair of 25-pound bumper plates. If you're going to do a lot of Olympic lifting, and hopefully you are, you're going to want to purchase some more bumper plates, some 15s, some 25s, maybe some 35s, and some 45s. You can probably skip the 35s, but you're definitely going to want the 45s. You could choose to replace all of your metal 45s with bumper plate 45s. Just bear in mind that they do take up more space on the bar, which could eventually become a problem if you become strong enough to have a whole bunch of them on there. Now, smaller plates. You also need something smaller than a 2.5-pound plate. You could get a pair of 1.25-pound plates, and that's a good option, but I would probably recommend you go the route of just getting a set of fractional plates. So a set of fractional plates, you can find these on Amazon, just look up fractional plates, is going to have a pair of 1-pound plates, a pair of 3/4-pound plates, a pair of 1/2-pound plates, and a pair of 1/4-pound plates. And this will allow you to make very small jumps, very incremental jumps in your weights when you need to. And lastly, a few more things to round out your gym, not in any particular order. You are going to need some chalk. We'll put a link to how we built this chalk bucket. It's not particularly complicated, and you can just use a regular bucket if you want to, but you are for sure going to want some chalk. 1 block will go a very long way. If you're lifting alone, you may have this chalk block for the rest of your life. You are going to need some collars to keep the weights on the bar. I'm rather partial to the old-fashioned metal spring collars. I think they're rather easy to put on with one hand with some practice. However, I realize that not everybody agrees with me on that, so these plastic collars are also very popular. You can find them various places, anywhere between 20 and 40 bucks for a pair. So chalk, collars, you need a bench so that you can actually bench press. You can get an incline bench if you want, but at the very least you need a flat bench. Something about 17 inches tall will typically do pretty well. You're going to want a platform of some sort. We'll link to the video, actually videos, where we talk about how to build a platform. It's not very complicated. If you don't make a platform, at the very least you're going to want some horse stall mats so that you protect your floor and you protect your plates. And lastly, you're probably going to want some weight storage. It's not strictly necessary, but it is nice not to just have your plates laying on the floor all around your gym, your garage, your basement, whatever. I would recommend an A-frame like the one you see here where it's angled like this. It makes the weights easier to put on as well as take off. And I would recommend that you don't get 2-inch, these are called the horns, don't get 2-inch diameter horns. In other words, don't get full size diameter horns. They're going to make it a pain to put the weights on and take it off. Get smaller ones. These are 1.5 inches. I actually probably recommend that you get inch ones, but 1.5 inches is just fine. You'll notice it makes it really easy to take the plate off, and there's enough slop there that even when I messed up, I can still put it back on pretty easily. So that's going to wrap up your general equipment for training. In a future video, we'll talk about what kind of personal gear you're going to want for training, shoes, belt, training log, stuff like that. Maybe we'll also make a separate video on kind of a shopping trip to actually put all this stuff together and see something like what it would cost to actually get a gym. But for now, this will do. Let me know if I forgot anything in the comments, something that you thought should have been in there. Otherwise, as always, we hope this helps you get stronger and live better.